Well, Donald Trump's speech was also watched closely by his allies in Israel. For more on that, let's bring in France 24's correspondent there, Noga Tarnopolsky in Jerusalem. Noga, what kind of reaction has there been in Israel to Trump's speech?
Well, it's an interesting question because today is the first day of the Passover festival in Israel. And so the government has had that as an excuse not to respond. But behind the scenes, there is confusion on the one hand. The Israeli public now is beginning to grasp that Israel's interests are not in the top of Donald Trump's mind. He barely mentioned Israel. And before giving this speech in a sort of offhand remark yesterday, he said he wasn't worried about the nuclear threat from Iran. He said we can look at it from the skies, we can see it from above. And this leaves Prime Minister Netanyahu in a very, very tight spot. Prime Minister Netanyahu just a month and a month ago, when this war started, promised Israelis regime change, not just saying regime change, but he actually promised that the Iranian regime would fall. And he promised that Israelis would be free of the nuclear threat from Iran. And it now appears that neither of these are top of mind for Donald Trump. And it also appears clear and clear to Israelis that only Donald Trump will decide the timeline for this war. So, joining other countries like the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Israel is now clearly facing a situation where the outcome of this war, if in fact it ends in the timeline that Donald Trump outlined, without any of the major issues resolved in favor of the American position, it would leave Israel more exposed, in greater danger than it was before. So I think that for the Israeli government, this has been, I would say, a blessed festival day in which they haven't yet had to respond, but they will. We should expect something by this evening.
And Noga, given all that you're saying, I mean, is that just another sign that cracks are perhaps starting to show in support for the Israeli government and Benjamin Netanyahu?
Indeed, a few remarkable things have been seen here in Israel, Jeannie. For one, an Israel Democracy Institute poll shows that while a majority of Israelis still support this war as they perceive it, as something that could secure safety for Israelis, the support has plummeted by 20 points in just 1 month. So over 90% supported this war at its start. And a month later, we're down to a little bit over 70% of the total Israeli population, including Jews and Arabs. There's that. And on the other hand, a really astonishing rift has broken out into the public between the Israeli army and the Israeli government. Yesterday, the chief of staff of the Israeli army issued his second stark warning in under a week. He wrote a letter to Prime Minister Netanyahu's coalition accusing them of basically forsaking him and Israeli army soldiers. He said that the army is accusing him of acting out of weakness, accusing him of responding to the calls from, quote, left wing TV stations. Whereas, in fact, he says he is watching out for the well being of the military and its norms. He said this specifically regarding an incident in which Israeli soldiers attacked a CNN crew and he then punished them. He suspended the brigade. And he said, on the other hand, that the government is failing to pass a budget that could sustain this military effort and failing, moreover, to pass a draft law which would allow him to bring in much needed more personnel. So we really are seeing an open breach, and we should keep an eye on that over the next few days as well.
Noga, thanks for that. France 24's Noga Tarnopolsky reporting from Jerusalem.